get a call while I'm away in college, and I pick up the phone. It's my mom, and she's, first of all, she's perfectly spherical, and very jolly and very optimistic. And she says to me on the phone, "Baby, everything is okay. No need to worry. You don't even have to come home." So I worry and start looking for a ticket home. And my mom is not one to sugarcoat, but you know, she's an eternal optimist. One time, a family friend of ours was going through a really hard time, and she called my mom and admitted that she was thinking about taking her own life. And my mom says to her, "Suicide? No, you will not do this because you are too lazy." The stool and the rope and say, "I'll write the letter tomorrow." So that lady is alive now, so it worked. And for a while my mom was like, "I should be a suicide counselor." We're like, no. Just stop while you're ahead. I'm in the middle of the semester, and I'm loving college. I love it because I took this class, this astrophysics class from this professor who wrote about the Big Bang, and I learned how to make liquid nitrogen ice cream, and there was this guy who told me about his particle accelerator, and he wasn't like, "Hey, want to see my particle accelerator?" It was literally a particle accelerator in his dorm room. So, if you haven't guessed, I'm kind of I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd. I'm a huge nerd. You know, underneath these clothes, I'm pretty nerdy, and you know, I take a lot of pride in that because you know, I watch Star Wars. I like Star Trek. I don't like Star Magazine or Star Search. One time this guy asked me for my phone number, and I gave it to him, and I said, "Isn't that interesting that 7 of the 10 digits are prime numbers?" And he didn't call back. That's okay. He probably didn't know what a prime number was. But I'm a huge nerd, and for a long time I didn't want to tell people how nerdy I was because it's not cool. Like around the 80s, Americans decided, you know, science and math were just not that into you. But nowadays, it's even harder to be a nerd because I'm just watching like what's going on in the world, and we don't value being smart. We value being dumb in America. But we don't call it dumbness. We call it small town Alaska values. So here in this, and you know, in the 70s, that was the prime time to be a nerd, right? Like, remember those like dark rimmed glasses, and computers were just coming out of their awkward teenage years. Yeah, just the fact that I attribute human emotions to computers means I'm kind of a nerd. So this was a great time to be a nerd, and it was also the time between 1960 and 1970 that immigration doubled in our country. And the reason, because in 1965, America decided we wanted really smart people to come in from all over the world to be in America. My dad was one of these nerds who immigrated around 1970, and he came because, as poor as he was, it was lucrative to be a scientist or an engineer. And if you don't know, Asia is the #1 exporter of nerds. So he comes over, and he came over with about $12, and adjusted with inflation, taking into consideration we've been downgraded, that's about $70. So $70, and growing up, he was one of 12 children, and 5 of them didn't make it. They died before the age of 1. So he and his siblings survived this third world, you know, germ virus pool that they lived in. He, I think at one point he had rheumatoid arthritis, his siblings had smallpox, he was bitten by a scorpion. He told me one day really proudly that he was a TB carrier, but he didn't actually get TB. So, you know, he comes over, and he decides that he couldn't bring my mom, so she came over a little bit later. So they come from South India, where the average temperature is 85 degrees. They land in Illinois, And my mom sees Illinois, and she sees snow for the first time. And this was my parents' first fight. She looks at my dad and goes, "Oh God, we left India for this? Maybe poverty isn't so bad." And when they fight, it's like they fight, and then afterwards, after the thunder and the lightning, it's like the rainstorm afterwards. It's just really quiet. It's really, really quiet afterwards. And they wouldn't fight about, infidelity or in-laws, because the in-laws were far away. They would fight about real things like food and being afraid of Chinese people. At that time, there was no place to go to make Indian food. So my dad and my mom, they had to go to the hippie co-op store to get exotic vegetables like eggplant. Then they would go to the Mexican grocery store for cilantro and cumin and plantains. And then they'd go to the Chinese grocery store for the big bag of rice. And he was like, my dad was like, let's go in. We got to get the big bag of rice. And my mom just stood at the door. She's like, I don't want to go in. And it was because at that time, India, the world's largest democracy, was having border disputes with communist China. So Chinese people were bad. They were trying to take things away from you. So my mom says this to my dad, and my dad says, "That is our old life. It's different. We are in America. Besides, the prices are so much better here." So they go in, and they find how to make Indian meals, and that was their second fight. And they made friends with Chinese people. They made friends with people from all over the world. And my dad eventually did become a scientist, because that was the thing to do. You had two choices as an Indian person, scientist or an engineer. And I guess comedian is one that they have come to accept. But it wasn't on the short list. And I wanted to be like my dad. I went to college to be a scientist or an engineer. My dad was the smartest person I knew. He was the smartest person, and I wanted to be smart like him. And he found a way. And so leaving college in the middle of all this nerdy stuff, I just didn't know what was going on. So I fly home, and I get there, and it sounds like that quiet after that rainstorm. Except my parents hadn't been fighting. My dad was reclining in a lazy boy, just flipping through channels, just like he was on this marathon rerun. "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" "Shh. Matlock is real." I don't know where he exactly got this from. Maybe he thought he was inspired by real events, but he's just locked into Matlock City here. And I found out from my mom that my dad lost his job as a chief scientist for a large company. And adding insult to injury, my dad became one of the millions of Americans who was then denied health care because of a previously existing condition, diabetes. So all this effort and work to become a scientist and an engineer in America, this is where they are. And this is, before they realized that there's other ways to make money, like insider trading or cocaine. My brother doesn't really know what's going on. He's sort of too little, but he knows that something is happening. So I go into his room, he's kind of playing with his action figures, and he just looks up at me and he's like, "Does this mean I need to work at McDonald's? Because at McDonald's, only kids with bad teeth have to work at McDonald's." Well, first of all, I didn't get what he was saying. He didn't have bad teeth. He had little kid teeth, and I had braces growing up. So his logic was, if my parents didn't have any money, they couldn't get him braces. And if he didn't have braces, he'd have to work at McDonald's, because that's where rednecks work. So, and adding insult to injury, we were Hindu vegetarians. Working at McDonald's, that's a double insult. So I reassure him. I tell him everything is going to be okay, which I don't really know if everything is going to be okay. So my mother comes up to me, and we're talking about what's happened, and my dad's still checked out, and she decides that she wants to go back to school. my brother and I thought my dad was the smartest person ever, and it wasn't because my mom was dumb. It's just she had different skills, like sarcasm and sense of humor and suicide advice. But she just didn't have any kind of structured upbringing. She was the oldest of 5, and when she was 9, her dad died. And that would ordinarily be really, really sad, but what happened after that is in traditional Indian society, my grandmother became a widow, and a widow is an outcast from Indian society. So basically my mom grew up with no parents. And there were a few days when she ate a full meal, but most of the time they just wanted to make sure that she wasn't getting into any trouble. So when my mom told me she wanted to go back to school, I was like, wow, okay, I will try to be encouraging. So she tells me she has to take this placement exam to pass out of the basic proficiency test for math. And at first she tries to test out of it. And I'm like, good, that's the American dream, Mom. Try to get out of something, good. But then she realizes that she can't, because she said, they're making me take this exam, and they said I have to have a legitimate reason, and I said, my legitimate reason is I don't want to take this test, but they said it's not good enough, so we're stuck with this test. So we're looking over the test, and it's basic math. So I say, Mom, this is basic math. Didn't you learn this? She's like, basic is one thing, math is another. And then I'm like, didn't you even attempt to do some of this when you were growing up? She's like, I managed. I used my influence, which means she bullshitted her way through school. We get to this section of the math exam, and it's the transitive property. I don't know if you know what the transitive property is, but I'll explain it to you. The transitive property has 2 definitions. One, characterized or of being of transition. Okay, my parents knew this pretty well. The second definition is from algebra. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. Really easy. I try to explain this to her, and she goes, I don't understand what you're saying. This makes no sense to me. Explain it again. Okay, Mom, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. You just said the same thing louder and slower. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll explain it to you in Tamil. And Tamil is the language that we speak at home. That's her first language. But here's the problem. I don't know how to say equals in Tamil. And I just took the first part, A. There's 5 characters associated with A in Tamil. So I just end up saying A, B equalanda, BC equalanda, AC equal, You just said the same thing with some unnecessary Tamil words thrown in. Well, how can you not get this? I'm explaining this to you. I'm trying to be patient. I've gone over this over and over again. Like, I have no idea how to get this through to your head. So I'm losing my patience, and my mom starts looking panicked. And for the first time, I think, she realizes that not everything is going to work out, even if she's optimistic and jolly and happy. When she and my dad got married, she weighed 85 pounds, and she's about my height. So everything was a challenge. Finding food was a challenge. So then she starts speaking to me directly in Tamil. And any conversation with my mom starts with sarcasm, and she's funny, and she makes fun of people, and she makes fun of me, and then if she talks in Tamil, it's like she's speaking in italics. There's something real that she's about to say. So she looks at me and she just goes, when I was a child, I was very rarely asked, did you have enough to eat? Much less if I learned anything in school. That's why I'm not smart. I'm not smart like you and your father. So I sort of sat there thinking this whole time, that's what I thought too. I thought my dad was the smart one, and my mom had other qualities, but she just wasn't right. okay, Mom, let's just stop. So you are smart. You learned English. You learned English and you didn't speak English before. How did you learn English? She's like, television, Lucy, Carol Burnett, soap operas. Great, good. Okay, so you learn English from television. What's your favorite television show now? The one with the Jew. Can you be more specific? Seinfeld. That guy Seinfeld, you know? Okay, Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, so in Jerry Seinfeld's show, if Jerry is telling Elaine something, Elaine is going to tell that to Kramer. So that's just like Jerry telling it to Kramer. A is equal to B, B is equal to C, so A is equal to C. Oh, that is simple. So she gets it. And what happened was pretty interesting. So my dad's okay now. He eventually went back to work as a consultant. He's retired now. His diabetes is under control, and he's not obsessed with Matlock. He prefers Columbo because it's more real. My brother, he unfortunately doesn't make as much as if he would have worked at McDonald's because he's a graduate student at Yale. My mom took that test. She passed. She got into school, and now she works as a software engineer supporting my family. And she doesn't watch Seinfeld anymore because she's seen all the episodes twice and they don't get HBO, so she doesn't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. But she does watch Friends, and she tries to tell me about Friends all the time. She's like, well, A and B used to date, then B and C were on. So that's just like A and B are dating in the first place, right? That's my mom, a nerd role model.